So as you guys know from looking at the landing page for this webinar where you guys signed up, in this webinar, we're going to explore how you guys can create your very own lead generation chatbot. Now, chatbots are a bit of a buzzword in the world of digital marketing, but there's a lot of confusion around them, especially around how you should go about creating one of them and implementing it in your marketing campaign. What we're going to do in this webinar is essentially cover the basics of that. So that by the end of this webinar, you guys are ready to build your own chatbots. Or actually, if you follow along with live build in this webinar, you guys actually have a chatbot ready to be deployed by the end of the session. Now, the plan for the next hour or so is first, we're going to go through intros. I'm going to tell you guys basically who we are at DARS, who I am, and why you should care about what I have to say on this topic. Then we're going to cover some basic definitions that you guys need to know before you can start creating a chatbot of your own. Then we'll get to the fun part, which is the live build, where we actually create a chatbot on the screen. And then we can jump over to some questions and answers. And on the topic of questions and answers, if you guys just drop questions or answers for me through the Zoom window, there should be a Q&A option for you. I'll get to them at the end once we reach the Q&A session. So if you have any questions while I'm going along, I might answer them in the middle of the webinar. I might answer them at the end, but feel free to drop them in. So to begin with, let's start with an intro, because right now, as far as a lot of you guys are concerned, I'm just a disembodied disembodied head floating on your screen, telling you that you should listen to me when you are creating your chatbots. So I feel like we need to give you guys some reason for you guys to believe what we are saying. To begin with, as you guys probably know, the company that's hosting this is Stars. That's who I work for. We have been in the CRO space since around 2015. And over the last 4 years, we've primarily been helping businesses boost their conversion rate using chatbots. So if you guys have been with us for some time, subscribed to our newsletter, or have been tracking our progress for some time, you'll know that we were sort of a diversified chatbot player before. But then we realized that the real value that we were offering to people was through lead generation chatbots by conversion rate optimization using chatbots. So we decided to focus on that segment. And it's also been apt because most of us at DARS have a background in marketing. So we're familiar with the space. We're familiar with chatbots. It just made sense to bring those two together because it seemed like a lot of the users on our platform were seeing that sort of benefit. In terms of who I am, I've been with DARS for some time now. I've been with them since almost the beginning. I'm a conversational designer and a marketer at DARS, so I handle a lot of the content creation that we at DARS do in-house to get people like you to subscribe for our builder and use it. And a large part of that has involved creating chatbots. So when you're trying to sell chatbots to people, when you're trying to get people to use chatbots, we found that some of the best ways to do that is to actually create chatbots. So I have been lucky enough over the last 4 years to create over 100 chatbots, some for marketing, some for actual customers that have garnered not only us, but a lot of our customers a bunch of leads, somewhere in the order of a couple of thousand. I do not have the exact number in that though. So that's why you guys should take what I have to say in this webinar a little seriously. I just have experience building chatbots and implementing them in marketing contexts. Now with that, we can actually jump into the chatbot related content. And before we can actually start building a chatbot, we need to get some basic definitions out of the way. And the first and most fundamental definition, I guess, is that of what a chatbot is. So there's a lot of confusion about this in the world. The most basic definition that you will find if you do a Google search looks something like this. It's a computer program designed to simulate a conversation with a human user to facilitate a trade of information or services. So that means, as you can see on the right over here, there's a chatbot with the red message bubbles, there's a human with the green message bubbles, and they're having a conversation to generate a lead. And this is the sort of chatbot we're going to try to create in this webinar. So it sort of fits the definition that you see over here. But we at DARS don't really like this definition because it's super broad. one of the issues that we've noticed in the world of marketing, especially when it comes to chatbots, is that when you have a definition that's this broad, people tend to fill it in with their own aspirations, which are sometimes extremely untenable. They are not realistic at all. When people think of chatbots, a lot of people ascribe words like AI or artificial intelligence, NLP to chatbots. And those technologies are super cool. We are optimistic at DARS about their potential to change the way we market in the future. But the fact of the matter is today, the quality of AI software out there, especially if you're a small to medium-sized business, isn't good enough where you can create the sort of AI-powered conversational experiences that you're hoping to, or that you expect that you might when you have a definition like this. And the other part of why we find this definition to be bad is because it's just plain boring. It's a very staid definition. It sort of sounds like it came out of a dictionary, and it doesn't really pique anyone's interest. So what we have decided to reframe, so what we've done is we've reframed our definition of chatbots, at least internally at DARS, to consider what we like to call conversational forms. And the basic premise behind this definition is that you can take the exact same lead information that you captured through your form and capture that information through a chat conversation. So instead of having a wall of fields on your landing page where you ask people a bunch of details about themselves so that you can follow up with them, you ask for those exact same details through a chat conversation, as you can see on the right over here. Now, the natural question that most people have in this situation when we first tell them this is, why would you want to make the switch? Forms have been working for a long time now. We've been using them in digital marketing for decades now to capture leads. Everyone knows how to use them. So why fix something that isn't broken? And the answer to that is, well, actually, forms are actually kind of broken. There are two primary issues that we have noticed with forms in our customers' landing pages, and those are to do with mobile optimization and engagement. So on the first front, if you ever used a web form on a mobile phone, you'll know that the experience isn't great. If the marketer on the other end hasn't done a good job of optimizing the page, you're going to end up pinching to zoom. We've all been there to see what fields are there in the form and to actually fill out the form. And on a related note, if the page is well optimized, even if they've done a good job of fitting it to the screen, it makes for an unengaging experience. And that's true on desktop as well, because people just don't like filling out forms. Forms are the sorts of things that you expect to see at a DMV. They're the sorts of things that you expect to see in extremely boring processes associated often with places like government. They're not the sort of experience that you should be seeing in a marketing experience in 2019, especially with attention spans as low as they are today. Because as marketers, we are essentially competing with Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat for attention. It's very easy for a prospect to close out of your landing page and open one of those apps and get that instant dopamine hit. So when you're using a form, that is not happening. Forms are unengaging. No one wants to fill them out, and it encourages people to close out of your page and procrastinate. Now with chatbots, you don't have that issue because you're transforming that one-way form filling experience that people find boring into an interactive conversation between your company and your prospects. So if we go back over here, you can see that the lead capture experience is transformed from the static experience where the prospects are filling out all the fields on their own into a dynamic experience where they're having a back and forth interaction, collecting one detail at a time, and sort of prompting them with new visual stimulus on the screen. So every time these message bubbles pop up, that's something new popping up on the screen. And as human beings, we're primed to look at those new things popping up on the screen because that's movement, and that sort of keeps the prospect engaged. Now there's a huge, still a little bit of movement behind me in the office. But there's a huge caveat to this value, and that's that it all boils down to implementation. Just like with any other technology, just like with landing pages, just like with forms, if you implement a chatbot badly, then you are going to not see some of those results that I was talking about. You're not going to see that additional mobile optimization. You're not going to see that additional engagement. So it's really key that you implement your chatbot with all the best practices that you can, so that the end user experience is actually good and you can actually see some of those gains in your lead generation experience. And that's why we're here today in this webinar. We are going to show you exactly how to do that. We're going to show you how you can implement those best practices so that you can see that improvement in engagement, see that improvement in mobile optimization, and then see a corresponding increase in your conversion rate because people are less likely to drop from your landing page. So with that, I think we're ready to start thinking about how we start creating our chatbots. But before we actually jump into the builder and actually start building it, so get into the actual guts of the chatbot, I want to share with you guys a bit of a metaphor to get you in the frame of mind of thinking like a chatbot creator. And the metaphor we use at DARS to sort of understand what we are doing when we're creating a chatbot is to compare the leads that we're capturing to a Subway sandwich. So if you've ever been to a Subway before, super popular. I love Subway. The basic premise is that you walk into the store, you go to the counter, and you go through this sort of assembly line of sandwich making where the people on the other side of the counter first ask you for what bread you want, what protein you want, what veggies you want, what sauce you want, and then they check you out. And the process of capturing a lead is very similar. You can split a lead up into similar discrete chunks, just like you can with a sandwich. And you can sort of sequence those chunks together to form a lead generation process. So think of a lead kind of like a sandwich. So just like you have bread, protein, veggie, sauce, you have name, email, and then your various qualification infos. The other reason we really like this metaphor of the sandwich is because of the Subway sandwich in particular, is because it sort of gets to one of the main values of a chatbot over a form that I sort of alluded to before. And that's that you could very easily make a sandwich at home. You can make a Subway sandwich at home, but it's not the same as going somewhere and having someone make it for you. And similarly, when you're capturing a lead, you could give them that form filling experience. Let's see if we can get back to that slide. You could give them that form filling experience. But they're going to be doing all of that on their own. It's not going to be a personalized experience. And when you shift the entire process over to a chatbot, you're essentially giving them that customer service experience like you would with a sub. You are making the sandwich for them. You're making the lead for them. And that's a large part of why you see an increase in your conversion rate when you switch from a form to a chatbot. Now with that, you guys have a sense of how we think about making chatbots to capture leads. So we think about chatbots sort of as, first of all, we think of the leads as sort of these like discrete, these sort of larger entities, an entire lead that can be split up into these discrete parts. So the name, the email, and the qualification info. And we think of the process of capturing that lead, of making that sandwich, in terms of either having them do it on their own through a form or doing it for them through a chatbot, so offering them a customer service experience. And with that, we are actually ready to start building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over into the DARS builder. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second over here. Switch over to the DARS builder and then share my screen with you guys again. So if you guys haven't already done so, you guys should go to our website, hellodars.com, and it's what you're seeing on your screen right now. Can I just get a confirmation from you guys? Are you able to see the purple web page? It says create conversational landing pages to improve your, yep, okay, awesome. So go to our website, sign up for our builder. There's a green sign up button in the top right of the page. There is a basic sign-up form on the other end. We don't ask for anything too controversial. It's not like we're asking for your social security number or your We're not asking for your social security number or anything personal like that. Just give us your email. I'm going to create a new one over here. I created a new email for this webinar to show you guys show the newer users or the people who haven't signed up on this webinar, what it looks like when you first sign up. Pick a secure password and give us your number. The phone number, we promise not to spam you with any information. We just use it to help to give you guys a better customer service experience. So if we need to get on the phone and walk you through something, we can do that. Once you hit the green create an account button, it's going to initialize your account. And you should be ready to go. Now, by default, when you drop into the TARS builder, you are dropped into the chatbot templates section of the builder. And essentially what the chatbot template section is a gallery of a couple of hundred chatbots that we've created in-house, or we've sourced in-house from a lot of our bot creators. That you as a chatbot creator can use one for inspiration. So for example, if you select from this drop-down insurance, if you're working in the insurance space and you want to create a chatbot that helps people get car insurance quotes, you can select this chatbot, see what this bot maker has done to capture a lead and incorporate some of their tactics into your chatbot. To capture leads in a similar way. What's even cooler about this chatbot template section of the builder is that you can actually use the templates that you see over here. So if you hit the green use this template button, it's going to duplicate this same chatbot, add it to your account, and then you can jump in and make all the tweaks that you want to make the chatbot customized for your company. So I can jump in here and I can change Kotak car insurance to whatever the name of my company is. But for this video, we're actually going to show you guys how to create a chatbot from scratch, because before you can even jump into a template like this and start making changes, you need to understand the basic mechanics of a chatbot. So to do that, what you want to do is click on the TARS button at the top of the screen. I forgot to mention, guys, this is a live build. So if you guys want, you can follow along. And by the end of this webinar, you will have your own chatbot if you do follow along with me. Anyways, click on the TARS button at the top of the page. That will drop you into the My Chatbot section of the builder. This is basically an overview of all of the chatbots that you've created so far. So as of right now, we just have the one that we duplicated from the chatbot templates. I'm not going to select that. I'm going to hit the blue create a chatbot button. It's going to open up this modal. I'm going to give my chatbot a name. So in this case, we're just going to call it basic lead gen because I'm showing you guys how to create a basic lead gen chatbot, and hit the green create from scratch button. Now, once you do that, it's going to initialize your creation workspace. And the creation workspace is basically where you define what the chatbot is going to say. You can define the design of the chatbot, the configuration of the chatbot, so the URL and things like that, and check the data that the chatbot collects. So once we create the chatbot and send it some data, have conversations with it, it's going to get populated in here. But we'll get to what you can do with the data and that sort of stuff later on in the video. For now, let's just focus on the creation side of the chatbot. And the first thing that you want to do, or the first thing that I'm going to do in this webinar is tell you guys a little bit about how the TARS builder works. So at TARS, the way we structure chatbot conversations is in terms of these objects called gambits. So as you can see in the top left of the screen here, there is a green add a gambit button. Go ahead and click that add a gambit button, and it's going to population your workspace with a weird looking object like this. It has two little sockets sticking out the top and the bottom, and it's this weird little gray rectangle. If you click on that rectangle, you'll see inside that essentially what a gambit is a single back and forth between the chatbot. So up here, we can define the bot messages, say something like, hi, what's up? And the user. So at the bottom of the gambit, you can define how the user is going to respond. By default, we have text input on. So what that looks like is we can hit publish, preview. The bot says, hi, what's up? Because that's what we said over here. And the user has an opportunity to respond at the bottom over here. So I can say, not much, you, and hit enter. You can also rename the Gambit. So right now we give it a generic name by default, GID1. So that's Gambit ID 1. But you can name it something a little more descriptive. And we highly recommend that you do, because once the data is collected, you can think of these Gambit headings as sort of the Excel headings that you'll have if you export all of your lead information into a spreadsheet, which I know that a lot of you guys do. Oh, I see we have people still entering the webinar as we speak. Welcome. We're in the live build part of the webinar, so we're actually creating a chatbot. If you guys haven't already done so, go to hellotars.com. You can see the URL up here and sign up for the builder. Create a chatbot from scratch. So hit the white tars button at the top and create a chatbot, and you'll be where we're at right now. So that's basically what a Gambit is. It's a single back and forth between a chatbot and a user. In terms of the user input, really quick, before we actually jump into creating the chatbot that we're building today, we have several different input option types. So you don't only need to ask users for text. A lot of people think that in a chatbot conversation, it's going to be a text interaction only. So you send some text, the user responds with some text, but that's just not the case. We've found that you can reduce the friction in the lead generation process using a bunch of custom input UI types. So a couple of the popular ones that I'll go over here are buttons. So for example, you can give users a couple of quick reply buttons to respond with. So we can say not much or quite a lot, actually. Or if you are asking for feedback, you can give them a star rating. I'll show you what this looks like. It's basically just going to show them 5 stars over here, and they can select what their rating is. If you are booking appointments, some of the more popular input UIs that we have are the calendar and time, date scroller, and time scroller input UIs. So if I select calendar and time, hit save, and then reopen this preview, you will see that we have a custom input UI to accept appointment bookings. So someone can choose a date, they can choose a time, and they can hit send, and then that appointment booking is made. We actually also have a Google Calendar input in the builder, so you can send these times directly to yours and the customer's Google Calendar. And you can actually also pull your available time slots from your Google Calendar, so they can't choose a time slot where you're busy. But that is a topic for another webinar. It's way more advanced in the scope of what we're doing today, so I'm not going to get into that. Finally, to close out the input UI section, we also accept image and file input. So if you want to collect documents, if you want people to scan something and send it to you, you can use the image or file input UI. So again, it's going to say, hi, what's up? And then it's going to ask you for a file or a photo to send it. As you can see, you can upload a file or take a photo. And then the final one is sort of geolocation. So you can, we'll use this in this bot, I think. We probably will, but you can basically accept location data from Google Maps. So if we hit publish, preview, you can essentially accept location data from the user through our Google Maps integration. As you can see over here, it's pulling my location over here in LA. Now with that, you guys have a sense of what sorts of input UI we can accept and what a Gambit is. And the way the lead generation process works at a high level is you just string together these Gambits. So I created another Gambit over here. I'm going to use this red socket at the bottom to connect the first Gambit to the second Gambit. And what will happen is, let's jump back to the button input, say not much, quite a lot. And what's going to happen is someone is going to land on the chatbot. The bot is going to say, hi, what's up? The user is going to have 2 options to respond, not much or quite a lot. And then based on which option they respond with, you can branch them off in different directions to different back and forths. So if they say not much, let's have the bot say something like, oh, cool. Same here. What's your name? So now what's going to happen is the bot is going to say, hi, what's up? If the user selects not much, it's going to take them in this direction over here. start the next gambit. So the bot is going to say, oh, cool, same here. What's your name? And then give the user an option to respond. And we can see that in action through the preview again. So the bot says, hi, what's up? You can skip this by clicking. I'm going to turn optional input at the bottom off here. Let's say not much. And now the bot moves on to the second gambit and says, oh, cool, same here. So that's those are the basic mechanics of how you build a chatbot in the DARS builder. You sort of create these gambits and you string them together to form an entire conversation that users can follow along with and sort of share their lead information along the way. Now we can actually get to the chatbot that we are trying to create in this webinar. It's taken a long time to get here, but hopefully you guys are in the right frame of mind and you understand what we are doing and what some of the terms I'm going to use are. And the best way we found to create your first chatbot, wow, we still have people coming in. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. The best way that we have found to create your very own chatbot is to start with a landing page that you already have. So we know that most of you guys, most of our audience, most of the people who read our content and probably signed up for this webinar are marketers. And if you're a marketer, you probably already have a landing page that you are using on your marketing campaigns. And the way we like to think of chatbots is as a replacement for those landing pages. So think about the context of Google Ads. If someone is looking for your company, they look up a keyword like maybe mortgages. They click on your Google ad at the top. If you're an LO, they land onto your landing page, which has a web form in it. Instead, you can drop them onto a landing page that has a chatbot on it, or you can just drop them onto a conversational landing page, which is basically just a chatbot. There's nothing else on the page, just a chatbot. And we found that that actually works really well in boosting your conversion rate. So the landing page that I'm going to be working with today is this landing page I found from Quicken Loans. It's for their mortgage product. That's pretty much all Quicken Loans sells. But the reason I chose this landing page is twofold. First of all, Quicken Loans paid a lot of money to get me to this page. They spend about $80 per click on Google to send people to this page, and I clicked on one of their Google ads to land over here. So they're paying a lot of money for the traffic that comes to this page. And if you factor in the fact that mortgage is a high volume search term and Quicken Loans is a massive company, they're probably dropping more than a few $1 million a year or even a month to get people onto this page. And the second reason I chose this page is because it's sort of reflective of a bigger problem in the world of digital marketing, and that's that marketers are creating pages that are unengaging. The problem I was talking about a little bit earlier. So Quicken Loans is paying $80 to get someone to this page, and when the person reaches this page, it's extremely boring. There's a lot of text on this page. These are disclaimers, and I know that they have to have them here. But when you combine all of those disclaimers that you need to have with a lead generation form, even if you're asking for all of the information one at a time, though I will say you eventually do reach a point where the form gets way longer, the entire process is, again, it's not mobile optimized and it's not engaging, like I mentioned before. And that's probably causing a lot of the people who land on this page to drop. In fact, we know this to be the case because a lot of our customers use chatbots for the mortgage origination process, that they use it for the lead generation process in mortgage, and this is the problem that they face. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we have a couple of people on this webinar right now who are using it for this exact purpose. So what we're going to try to do is transform this lead generation experience on the Quicken Loans page into a chatbot lead generation experience. And the first thing that we do when we're going about doing this is we create a hook. So at the outset, I'm going to say in this webinar, I'm going to show you guys essentially how to create a conversational landing page. So people click on the Google ad, and the first thing that they see when they land on the page is your chatbot. So they're going to land on a page that doesn't look all too different from this. We usually embed the chatbot so it's a little bigger and takes up a little more of the page on desktop. On the phone, they'll see just this chat interface, and they start having a conversation with the chatbot to generate their lead. We found that it's a super focused way of capturing leads. Now, the thing is, when someone's clicking on your Google ad, the first thing that they see has to grab their attention. Like I mentioned before, attention spans are increasingly low, and you're competing with some pretty strong players for attention. You're competing with the Instagrams and the Facebooks of the world to keep people on your page. So in these first 3 messages, you really need to capture your prospects' attention. And the way we do that at TARS is we take sort of a 3-message approach. I just mentioned 3 messages, and that's because we usually take a 3-part approach to capturing people's attention. Now, the first part of this approach is including a welcome message. So we kind of take this for granted with regular landing pages, but when people land on the page, there's a lot of branding around the page. This is the Quicken Loans logo. The Quicken Loans colors are on the page. There's a lot of red, green, and white. And that serves to make the page identifiable, first of all. Creating a brand image is great if you're running retargeting campaigns, or in the case of larger companies like Quicken Loans, where you have TV ads, it helps people associate your landing page with that ad they saw on TV. And that sort of feeds into this broader idea of legitimacy. So when people click on your page and they land on it and they don't see any branding, it makes the page look generic. And when a page looks generic, it looks a little bit spammy. And when pages look spammy, I don't need to tell you this. I'm sure you've been in this situation. If a page looks spammy, you're probably going to close out of it because it doesn't look legitimate. So what we like to do right off the bat when people land on our pages is to welcome them to the website and give them a little bit of branding. So we're going to say something like welcome to Quicken Loans. And what we can actually do is throw in a logo as well. So over here, I'm going to upload the Quicken Loans logo really quick. That adds a little bit of visual branding. Nothing speaks branding like a good logo. So we're going to throw that logo in here, and that's going to get prospects in the frame of mind that this page is legitimate and it is going to do what I ask it to do. They're not trying to scam me over here. Now, once you've got that basic condition out of the way, what you can start to do is start to actually grab their attention. So in the second message, what we like to do is we like to call it a value proposition message, and we give prospects the value proposition of the company. So in Quicken Loans example, they are going to help you find the best mortgage option. The H1 or the H1, the header in your landing pages is a good bet for your value proposition message. So I'm just going to actually copy this H1 over here and add it to the chatbot message. So this is basically conveying Quicken Loans' main value proposition. And the reason we do that is because we found that when prospects land on a page, the first thing that they want to do is figure out whether the page is offering them what they are looking for. So usually what that looks like on a traditional landing page is they glance over the page. They see what's there cursorily, just to figure out a lay of the land, figure out whether the page is offering them what they want, and then they start the lead generation process. Over here, what we're going to do is we're just going to give them a short message that tells them this. I will say, be careful when you are using your headers from your landing pages in your chatbot conversations to adjust the messaging so that it is conversational in nature. So over here, our home loan experts will help you find the best mortgage option. It's kind of impersonal. It's the sort of thing that you'd say on a landing page. But if you were actually having a conversation with someone, it might not be the best way to go about things. So we can actually say something like, we will help you find the best mortgage option. And we're going to uncapitalize all this stuff because it's a message, it's not a heading. Now, by changing the our mortgage experts to we, what we've essentially done is we've personified the chatbot. Now the chatbot is a member of the Quicken Loans team. It's not an inanimate piece of software like your landing page. It's an actual entity that works at Quicken Loans that is part of the we that helps the customer find the best option. So that's a subtle change that you want to make in your chatbot, in your value proposition message, to make sure that it sort of fits in the context of your chatbot. Once you have the value proposition message in place, once you've told prospects what you have to offer, and they're convinced that if they stay on the page, they're going to get what they were looking for in their Google search. So they looked up mortgage quote, they're going to get a mortgage quote over here. So we can actually change this to quote. You need to actually get them to take action. So on a regular landing page, you have CTAs, you have the next button, you have the form field. And similarly, in your chatbot landing page, you need to tell them how they can continue the interaction and generate a lead, and then give them an opportunity to do so. Now, what we found is in a conversational landing page, especially, you don't want to ask for information that's too controversial in this ask message. People aren't really willing to share anything too personal right off the bat when they land on your page, and you need to break the ice before you can do that. So we always recommend asking a very low stakes question. And the best way to figure out whether your question is low stakes or not is actually think about whether it can be responded to with a button. So if you ask someone for their name, that's a personal piece of information. They have to actually type that out. So you need to use the text input over here, and the user is actually typing out their name. So that's not a low stakes question. A low stakes question would be something that could easily be responded to with a button that doesn't really take anything away from the user. They're not losing anything by sharing the information with you. So what we usually go for is basically accepting the intent to start the process. So in this case, we're offering them a free mortgage quote. We're going to say something like, if you have a couple of minutes, we can get you a free quote today. Since we're using quote over here, I'm actually going to change this back to option. You don't want the words to be too repetitive because that sticks out to a lot of people. I know it would stick out to me. It's a pet peeve I have, but maybe that's just because I'm a content marketer who's writing every single day. Now, once you've said this question, you can easily get the user to respond with a single button tap. So we can have a button that says get a free quote. Users tap this button and then they start the lead generation process. I also like to throw in an icon whenever I use one of these buttons right at the beginning because it adds a tiny little visual cue, and human beings are visual creatures. So when they see a little graphic over here, it helps them process what's being asked of them quicker, and it reduces the friction in the process. It also just looks, in my opinion, it looks good. It makes the entire process look a little bit better. We have a lot of text going on over here. Adding this tiny visual cue helps make the page look a little better. And with that, we have the entire hook ready. We can actually rename this to hook. We like to call this a hook because essentially you're hooking your prospect's attention over here. Again, just to recap, you have 3 stages to this hook. You have the welcome message where you establish your branding. You have the value proposition message to establish what you're offering to the customer, and then you have the ask message where you tell them how they can proceed with the interaction. If we hit save over here and publish, we can actually preview the hook so far and see what it looks like in practice. It's going to say, welcome to Quicken Loans, share the logo. We'll help you find the best mortgage option. If you have a couple of minutes, we can get you a free quote today. And then users can click this button to continue the conversation. Now, we don't have anything hooked up over here right now, so the conversation doesn't go on, but we'll get to that right now. Now, the reason I say you should start with your landing pages, other than the fact that you need it for the hook, you can use the logo, you can use the heading to inform the way you start the conversation, is because your forms have all of the details that you want to collect to generate a lead. They have all that qualification information. They have all of that, those basic details that you need to generate a lead. So using this form over here, we can actually create a lead generation flow in this chatbot, connecting together a bunch of gambits to capture a lead through the chatbot conversation. So over here, I just added 2 gambits. We can go in here and capture a couple of details. Now, I will say, especially if you have a landing page like Quicken Loans, where you've segmented it into multiple parts. So over here, the user needs to fill in one detail at a time for a little bit, keep hitting next. They reach over here, they hit next again, takes them to another form. What I usually recommend that you do is set up a Google Doc. I have one over here. Just went to sleep real quick. but set up a Google Doc with all of the information that you want to collect. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier, because every time you're switching back and forth between your builder and the form, it's not going to be as much of a hassle, because you don't need to keep clicking on these buttons. All you need to do is switch over to your doc, take a look at what lead information that you need to capture, and then use that in your chatbot. You can also, the beauty of using Google Docs is you can cancel out stuff that you've already accepted. Now, as you can see over here, I have the information set up. We have some basic information, the name and the email. You can think about this in terms of the Subway metaphor again, the Subway sandwich metaphor. It is the bread of the sandwich. It's the bread of your lead. You can't have a sandwich without bread. You can't have a lead without name and email. So these are the two most important pieces of information that we want to collect. The rest of it is qualification info. So this is stuff that you do need, especially if you're trying to originate a mortgage, but it's not as important as a name and an email. If you have a name and an email, you can follow up and capture all of this information later. So I've just organized it in that way. This is not necessarily the order we're going to use. Now, jumping back into the lead generation flow, what I always like to do, and you've probably got a hint of this already, is to think about what I would say in this situation. What would I say if I were in the chatbot situation capturing a lead? And the first thing I do is probably acknowledge their user input. So over here, the user has just hit the get a free quote option. So before we actually ask them the question, so we could say something like, what is your name? Before we ask them this question, we need to acknowledge the fact that we received their input. Because if we jump straight into the name question, it is going to be a little bit rude. It's going to feel a little bit like an interrogation. And the chatbot, which is personified, which people think is an actual entity on the other end, is going to seem like it doesn't care for being polite. And you don't want that in a customer service experience. So what we're going to do is first acknowledge the user's input. We're going to say something like, great, let's get started. What is your name? So now what we've done is the user has landed into the bot. We've showed them the hook. We've captured their attention. They've hit the get a free quote button. And just as a human being would do in this situation, the bot is acknowledging their input, saying something like, great, let's get started. And then saying, what is your name, to capture the first lead. We're going to go ahead and rename this gambit as name so that it's a little more structured. And in terms of input type, we are going to select name from the text input type. So this is just going to verify that people are sharing their name with you. If we wanted their full name, for example, we could actually add full name over here and change this to full name to ensure that they're sharing their full name with you and not just their first name, not just their last name, their entire name. Now, once we've asked for their name, we can move on to the next gambit, the next detail in this flow. We can remove this. I don't like asking for email next, and this sort of gets to a broader point in the chatbot creation process. You want to think about how you're ordering your questions. Again, think like a human being. Think about what you would do in the chatbot situation. We found in our customers' accounts that when people ask for email ID right at the beginning, or they ask for contact info right at the beginning of the conversation, people don't want to fill it out. They don't want to continue with the conversation because they're under the impression that all you want is their email ID so that you can start spamming them. All you want is their phone number so that you can start spamming them with calls. So what you really want to do is offer the prospects some amount of value. So make them feel like they've got something from the conversation before asking them for that email ID or that phone number. In fact, actually, I might change this to phone number because for LOs, a lot of the times phone numbers are a better option. So instead, we're going to skip the phone number for now, and we're going to jump into the lead generation process. Or the qualification information, rather. So the first question that we need to ask is what type of loan they want. Now over here, again, we want to acknowledge the user input, so we can say something like, nice to meet you. We're going to use a feature in the TARS builder called data referencing right now. And essentially what this does is it pulls user input from a different part of the conversation. So over here, we've added ursp.name in these curly brackets. ursp means user response, and name means the gambit from which we're pulling the user response. So as you can see over here, we've named this gambit name. So once a user shares their name over here, that is going to be stored in the chatbot. and you can call on that name later on. So essentially what's going to happen is the prospect is going to share their name. The chatbot is going to say, nice to meet you, and then pull their user response using this notation, the double curly braces, and then URSP dot the Gambit name. It's going to pull their name and add it into the message. So if I responded with Arnav over here, the chatbot would say, nice to meet you, Arnav. I can actually show you what that looks like. If I hit publish, preview, it's going to send me the hook. Welcome to Quicken Loans. We'll help you find the best mortgage option. If you have a couple of minutes, we can get you a free quote today. Hit get a free quote. Great, let's get started. What's your full name? We can give it the full name. And now it's going to say, nice to meet you, Arnav Patel. So it's basically pulled my name from the data and inserted it into the message. Again, that's URSP dot, and then the Gambit name, which you can find up here. So over here, we pulled it from the name Gambit. Now we can ask for the next detail after we've acknowledged their input, which is type of loan. What type of loan are you looking for? And over here, I believe the only options that most places have are refinance and purchase. So we can go ahead and call this Gambit type of loan, hit save. And as you can see now, we have two sockets sticking out of the bottom. Now, as I mentioned before, using these sockets, you can branch in different directions. And sometimes a lot of loan officers do like to collect different information when it comes to type of loan. But in this particular conversation, since you guys have better things to do today and I have better things to do today as well, I'm not going to go through both of the branches. I'm actually going to turn branching off, and we're going to go in just one direction for the lead generation process and just collect these pieces of information. So I'm going to cancel that off the list, and then we can start to string together a bunch of other gambits to capture the rest of the lead information. So over here we have first-time buyer 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then phone number. That's 10 gambits. So I'm just going to create 10 gambits and hook them up together over here. So that's 2 gambits. Connect third one. Just giving myself some runway so that I don't have to keep creating gambits. Some people like to actually create the gambits as they go along. I used to do that, but I found that this method makes my workflow go a little bit faster. So I'm just going to connect 10 gambits in a row, or actually we've connected enough for now. We can move on to the next detail. It's going to ask them whether they're a first-time buyer or not. So again, we ask them the question, are you a first-time buyer? So this is the flow for the purchase direction, clearly, because they're purchasing it. That's why we're asking them whether they're a first-time buyer or not. Again, there's no sense in asking them for text input, because tapping out yes takes a lot more effort than just hitting a button that says yes. So we can just give them a yes, no option. Again, we're going to turn branching off because we want to send them in the exact same direction, regardless of what their response is. So first-time buyer. Next, we are going to ask them for, actually, we forgot something. I mentioned that we need to acknowledge the user input to make the conversation feel a little bit more polite, and we need to do that over here as well. Something as simple as like a got it or a noted is good enough. It's better than nothing because it makes the prospect well aware that the bot has got what it's saying, and it makes the conversation feel a little bit more human. And it's that humanity that's going to get you that higher conversion rate. So add whatever you can over here to acknowledge the user input. Just make sure it's polite. Cancel out first-time buyer. When do you plan on purchasing? Again, we can make this response using buttons. Great. Acknowledging their user input again. When purchase, this gives me a sense of what I'm asking over here. So we can call it when purchase. When do you plan on purchasing the home? We don't need to ask them for an exact date because they might not be aware. We can give them some broad categories over here. So think about how, what makes the user's life easier, what makes it easier for them to continue with the lead generation process and implement that. We found that buttons are a great way to do this. If you can take a response that's super broad, it's super specific, like the date which they're going to purchase it, and distill it down into a few categories that they can just tap on with a button, that's always going to help you move people along in the process a little quicker. So we can say immediately. We can say in 2 to 3 months. You guys can't see this, but I have another screen over here with a couple of aids. So that's what I'm reading right now. If you see me looking down in the video, 3 to 6 months, 6+ months, undecided. So this is for people who are just exploring. Again, I'm going to turn branching off over here. I will get to a stage in this lead generation process where I actually use the branching process. But over here, we want to ask them the exact same next detail regardless of how they respond. We want to ask them for their house value. So there's no sense in having 6 different branches emerging from this gambit, because that's just going to make our lives a whole lot easier. So that's why I have turned it off. If we leave it on, you can see that we have, 5 different branches that we can go in. I'm going to go in, turn this off, hit save, and it's connected back up to the next one. I'm going to zip through this next part really quick, because you guys get a sense of where we're going with these lead generation, with these lead gen questions. So we're going to ask for house value next. House value. You can say thanks. Do you have a sense of how much Yep. So I'm getting a message from someone in the group saying that they want to go through this a little quicker, and I completely understand that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to skip a couple of these. We're going to skip a couple of these lead generation questions. We can actually skip these 3 maybe. They're just basically lead qualification questions in a mortgage lead generation flow. You guys have the basic sense of how to make a lead generation flow. So if you had to add those questions in, you could. Do you have a sense of how much the house is going to cost? And we can give them a number input over here to respond with, because they need to respond with a dollar value. After that, we can ask for their down payment. So we can say, and how much is the down payment? Over here, you can see that I'm saying, and how much is the down payment, because it flows well from house value. It's sort of the, it's sort of what a human would say. It's what I would say if I was in the bot's position. They say the house costs this much, and I'd say, how much is the down payment? So that's why I am phrasing it in this way. Down payment. Again, we're going to put the number keyboard on and hit save, go in here, cancel these out. And then we want to ask for the last couple of details. So over here, we're going to say zip code. Got it. And where, in which zip code are you buying the house? Again, we can give them a number input, because zip codes are usually numbers, at least in the US. And then we can get to the credit score option, which is where I'm actually going to use the branching. So over here, most of the times in mortgage lead generation flows, we like to ask for credit score in terms of categories. So we can say, finally, what is your estimated credit score? So for something like this is a great example of where you can use categories and branching. So instead of asking them for their exact credit score through a number input, we are going to use buttons and actually ask for the basic categories of their credit score. So the options that we have are excellent. So that's 720 plus. Good, 660 to 719. Average, that's 620 to 659, and then below average, which is below average or poor. So we can say poor, 620 and below. These aren't the exact categories. There's usually a below average category in between average and poor, but for the purposes of this lead generation flow, we're just gonna go with this. Now with these branches, what we can do is we can send all of the people who have average and above to the end of the lead generation flow, where we capture their email or their phone number. So if they have excellent, good, or average credit score, we're going to send them in this direction. So that's what we did over here with these connections. And if they have a poor credit score, they're not really a good lead for us. We don't want to follow up with them because as Quicken Loans, we probably aren't going to give them a loan, or we might not give them a loan based on, maybe not in those explicit terms, but we might not give them a loan based on their information. They might not be approved. So we're going to send them in a different direction. So first, let's deal with that end of the flow. We can actually close out the conversation over here. We can say something like, sorry, but you might not meet the credit requirements for an online quote. We can say online quote. Please call us at, and then we can pull their number from up here. To talk to an expert, And then to end the conversation, we jump into the select user input type and click auto page redirection. We can hit end over there. Now, once that's done, we can jump into the actual lead generation flow where we've collected all of their information and we need to close out the lead generation flow. So this is the checkout process in the Subway creation. And that's asking them for their phone number, so the contact details. How are you going to follow up with them? So what we can do over here is rename this phone number. And the way we always like to add the details at the end, again, as I mentioned before, is we like to phrase it as we've already given them value, we've created their quote for them, and now we just need to reach out to them. We just need their phone number incidentally at the end to reach out to them. So we can say something like, great, we have all the details that we need to generate a quote. Can we get a phone number so that we can get in touch, so that our expert can get in touch with you, so that our expert can get in touch with you. And with longer questions like this, I always like to make the detail that we're asking for bold, just so that it's clear what we're asking for. Also, at the end of the flow, I always like to reward them a little bit with a little bit of a visual cue. So you can throw in an emoji over here, so something just like a happy face. Close that up. In the input type for text, we can ask for their phone number. We can put mobile verification on, hit save. And with that, we've pretty much completed the lead generation process. All we need to do is close out the conversation. So we need to sign off. We can say something like, thank you. We will be in touch soon. With your quote. Have a great day. And again, jump in here, select auto page redirection, and rename this end. So with that, we've actually created the entire lead generation process. Now, if a prospect lands on this bot, if they click on your ad and they land on your conversational landing page and they land on your chatbot, they're going to see the hook and they're going to go through the entire lead generation process. This is way more engaging than a regular form. And Quicken Loans can actually start using this bot right away. The one change I would make is I'd go into the design section and make sure that the branding is up to speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the colors of the message bubbles. So what we're going to do is jump into the design section on the left over here. I like to make the background solid white because it makes it look a little bit more seamless in terms of the transition from the white of the chat area to the background. We can make the bot message bubble colors the Quicken Loans colors, and we can actually make the user message bubble colors the CTA colors. So over here it's green. You can pick that green up and throw it in here. Once we hit save, publish, and open it up, Now we have a brand new lead generation process that's branded well, that captures leads in a more engaging way. Now, really quick, before we jump into the Q&As, I just want to show you guys what happens with the data that is collected through this chatbot. So if the user has a conversation over here, so I'm giving it my name. It says, nice to meet you. What type of loan am I looking for? Let's go with purchase. Are you a first-time buyer? Yes. We actually don't need to go through the entire lead generation process. If we jump into the view section, you can see that all of the conversations that we've had in testing this bot have been populated in the view section. So once you start capturing actual leads with this, once you put it behind your Google ad, all of the information is going to be populated over here. And now with that information, what you can do is you can look at it over here, or using our Zapier integration, you can send it over to your favorite CRM. You can analyze it using our in-house data analytics. So this will just tell you some basic stats about it. You can set a goal. So once it reaches a certain gambit, it'll consider that an achieved goal. And you can see how many people are getting converted. Or if you're a real data nerd, you can export it as a CSV and play around with it in a spreadsheet, which a lot of our customers like to do. With that, I think you guys have a good sense of how to create a lead generation chatbot. We've essentially covered everything that you need to know. You know what a gambit is. You know how to string these together. You know that you need to think like a human being when you are actually making these bots. So like in terms of what sorts of messages people say. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'd be more than happy to answer. Also, if you guys want to leave, that's perfectly fine. Again, we are going to be sending you this, a recording of this. We're going to be sending you a recording of this presentation. We're going to send you a recording of this presentation after the webinar is done, so that you guys can check it out after and go through the process again. So we actually do have a question that's come in. How do you see this data that is captured? Okay, so actually I just mentioned that if you jump into the builder and hit the check data section on the left side of the screen, again, if you click view, you can see all of the conversation that have been created over here. You can integrate the chatbot with Zapier, so you can send it over to your favorite CRM. We have a video over here explaining how you can do that. You can use the analyze section to see some basic stats about the chatbot and its conversations, so how much it's converting, and you can export it as a CSV so that you can play around with it in Excel. Another question that we have, inside the gambit under message, what triggers 1 to 2? Okay, so I presume that what you're asking over here is when we are in the chatbot flow, how does the bot know to move from gambit 1 to gambit 2 over here? And the way you can think about it is that these are building blocks. So the chatbot sends some messages, the user responds with an option, and then as soon as the user responds, it's going to go through the socket. As soon as the user responds, the chatbot is going to move on to the next gambit and send the next set of messages. So the way the chatbot knows to switch over from this gambit to the second gambit is it waits for the user response. As soon as the user responds over here, it's going to, based on that user's response, move to the next appropriate gambit, so the one that's connected to it, and send the messages over there. I hope that clarified your doubt. So feel free to ask for further clarification if you need that. So you guys probably saw some of that, but some of you guys are thanking us for the webinar. Thank you guys so much for joining the webinar. It's been really useful for us. Thank you guys for joining us again. This is our first webinar. It's a bit of a trial run for us. So we really appreciate the fact that you guys took the time out to come and watch me explain how to make a chatbot. So we have a question from Desi, and that's how can you explain the analytics and tracking section a little bit more? Absolutely. So basically how the analytics and tracking section works is if you jump into the analytics, what's going to happen over here, once you get a few more conversations in from actual customers, is you are going to be able to see, first of all, how many people are landing on the bot. So that's unique bot visits. So how many people actually open up this chatbot URL, how many conversations it's happening. So that means how many people actually click on that first button and start the conversation. The bot interaction rate down here is essentially the rate of people starting the conversation. So how many people, of the people that land on the chatbot, how many people actually start the conversation? That's your bot interaction rate. Your bot goal completions are essentially, if you click on set bot goal over here, you can add a goal gambit. So let's say that the phone number is the goal gambit. As soon as someone reaches the phone number gambit, we can consider them to be a lead because we can follow up with them. So if we set that to be a goal gambit, hit save, and then jump back into the analyze section, the goal completions is essentially going to count the number of people who have actually gone through the conversation and shared their phone number at the end over here. So that's what the goal completions indicates. And then the goal conversion rate is, of course, the rate at which people convert based on visits. So if you have 100 people visiting your page and 5 of them share their phone number, they reach the phone number gambit, you'll have a 5% conversion rate. Another aspect of the analytics section, which I didn't touch upon in the actual webinar, is the timeline graph. So all of the statistics that I just talked about, again, once you start to collect more information, it's going to show you how those statistics have changed over time. So if you make a change to your chatbot, you can go into this timeline graph section to see whether that change had an impact on your conversion rate or not. So let's say you're experimenting with the messaging flow and you say, we'll help you find the cheapest mortgage option instead of best mortgage option. You can go in here and see whether that affects your interaction rate. Are people more likely to start the conversation and actually click that first button if you replace best with cheapest? You can use the conversation timeline graph to make that assessment. I hope that covered your question, Desi. Any more questions out there? Okay, so I'm actually going, oh, we actually might have another question. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Zapier integration? How do you get email address to ActiveCampaign? Sure, absolutely. I think it was Tina. So the way the Zapier integration works, I'm not sure if it's changed over here yet. We actually just about a week ago, released our full Zapier app. So if you jump into Zapier and you log in, we are one of the apps listed in the store. And how it works is essentially you can connect your Tars conversation with any other app over here. And what happens is every time a conversation is complete in your chatbot, that conversation data is sent to Zapier. And over here, as you know, if you've used Zapier before, you can mess around with it, mess around with that data, structure it, and then send it to whichever app you want. So for example, if you want to integrate it with ActiveCampaign, you can connect Tars with ActiveCampaign. Every time a conversation comes in, you can select which details from the conversation you want to send over. So the email ID, it'll show you all the details from the conversation. You can say, let's send the email ID to ActiveCampaign, and then it'll automatically get sent to ActiveCampaign. I'm assuming you've used Zapier before, so you know the process within Zapier, but that's essentially how it works. Every time, if you connect Tars to another app, every time a conversation happens in the Tars conversation, it gets sent to your target app. Glad I could help, Dinah. So I'm actually going to end the webinar over here. Again, we're really grateful that you guys could join us for this. It's a trial run for us, and we're hoping to do more webinars like this in the future. So we really appreciate you guys coming onto this webinar. As I mentioned before, we are going to send you a full recording of the entire session so that you guys can check it out afterwards if you want to follow along with the live build again. once we send you that, we'd also really appreciate it if you guys could give us some feedback on this. I know that a lot of people on this call, looking at the attendees list, are already in touch with us and they know how to get in touch with us. But if you guys, some of the regulars, could send us some feedback, we would really appreciate that. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, we will send you guys the recording after this video.